Asked you to marry me long ago, only there were obstacles in the way. I love you, Ida. There never was a woman like you. Never." She listened with the same set face. Obviously he was in earnest, but his earnestness did not move her. It scarcely even flattered her pride. She disliked the man intensely, and nothing that he could say or do would lessen that dislike by one jot. Probably, indeed, it would only intensify it. Presently he stopped and stood beside her, his breast heaving and his face broken with emotion, and tried to take her hand. She withdrew it sharply, for his touch was unpleasant to her. "I do not think that there is any need for all this," she said coldly. "I gave a conditional promise. You have fulfilled your share of the bargain, and I am prepared to fulfil mine in due course." So far as her words went, Edward could find no fault with their meaning, and yet he felt more like a man who has been abruptly and finally refused than one declared chosen. He stood still and looked at her. "I think it right to tell you, however," she went on in the same measured tones, "that if I marry you it will be from motives of duty and not from motives of affection. I have no love to give to you, and I do not wish for yours. I do not know if you will be satisfied with this. If you are not, you had better give up the idea." And she for the first time looked up at him with more anxiety in her face than she would have cared to show. But if she hoped that her coldness would repel him, she was destined to be disappointed. On the contrary, like water thrown on burning oil, it only inflamed him the more. "The love will come, Ida," he said, and once more he tried to take her hand. "No, Mr. Cossey," she said in a voice that checked him. "I am sorry to have to speak so plainly, but till I marry I am my own mistress. Pray understand me." "As you like," he said, drawing back from her sulkily. "I am so fond of you that I will marry you on any terms, and that is the truth. I have one thing to ask of you, Ida, and that is that you will keep our engagement secret for the present, and get your father, I suppose I must speak to him, to do the same. I have reasons," he went on by way of explanation, "for not wishing it to become known." "I do not see why I should keep it secret," she said, "but it does not matter to me." "The fact is," he explained, "my father is a very curious man, and I doubt if he would like my engagement because he thinks I ought to marry a great deal of money." "Oh, indeed," answered Ida. She had believed, as was indeed the case, that there were other reasons not unconnected with Mrs. Quest, on account of which he was anxious to keep the engagement secret. "By the way," she went on, "I am sorry to have to talk of business, but this is a business matter, is it not? I suppose it is understood that in the event of our marriage the mortgage you hold over this place will not be enforced against my father?" "Of course not," he answered. "Look here, Ida, I will give you those mortgage bonds as a wedding present, and you can put them in the fire, and I will make a good settlement on you." "Thank you," she said, "but I do not require any settlement on myself. I had rather none was made. But I consent to the engagement only on the express condition that the mortgages shall be cancelled before the marriage, and as the property will ultimately come to me, this is not much to ask. And now one more thing, Mr. Cossey. I should like to know when you would wish this marriage to take place. Not at once, I presume." "I wish it to take place to-morrow," he said with an attempt at a laugh, "but I suppose that between one thing and another it can't come off at once. Shall we say this time 6 months? That will be in May." "Very good," said Ida. "This day 6 months I shall be prepared to become your wife, Mr. Cossey. I believe it is," she added with a flash of bitter sarcasm, "the time usually allowed for the redemption of a mortgage." "You say very hard things," he answered, wincing. "Do I? I daresay I am hard by nature. I wonder that you can wish to marry me." "I wish it beyond everything in the world," he answered earnestly. "You can never know how much. By the way, I know I was foolish about Colonel Quaritch, but Ida, I cannot bear to see that man near you. I hope you will draw up his acquaintance as much as possible now." Once more Ida's face set like a flint. "I am not your wife yet, Mr. Cossey," she said. "When I am, you will have a right to dictate to me as to whom I shall associate with. At present you have no such right, and if it pleases me to associate with Colonel Quaritch I shall do so. If you disapprove of my conduct, the remedy is simple. You can break off the engagement." He rose absolutely crushed, for Ida was by far the stronger of the two, and besides, his passion gave her an unfair advantage over him. Without attempting any reply, he held out his hand and said good night, for he was afraid to attempt any demonstration of affection, adding that he would come to see her father in the morning. She touched his outstretched hand with her fingers, and then, fearing lest he should change his mind, promptly rang the bell. In another minute the door had closed behind him and she was left alone. End of chapter 23.